Once upon a time there was an island called Barbuda. It was so unspoilt, a little jewel in the Caribbean.
Barbuda is the most beautiful island in the Caribbean.
The sand was white, the sea was turquoise.
It was so beautiful, the sun was so white.
But what made it unique was the land and how it was shared. When slavery ended in 1832, slaves in other islands in the Caribbean reverted to being subjects of the crown. Barbuda was different. The island had been leased by one family, the Codringtons, and unusually the land was then granted to the people there. For nearly 200 years, every descendant of the former slaves have owned the island as common land. This unique system goes to the heart of our story about an island so serene, so beautiful, that a British princess once said it was one of her favourite places on earth. But this was not to last.
As far as Barbuda is concerned, I went there on a day trip and never forgot it.
Hollywood legend turned businessman Robert De Niro also fell under Barbuda's spell.
It's special.
Mr. De Niro is a Democrat fundraiser and a vocal opponent of Donald Trump.
He talks how he wants to punch people in the face. Well, I'd like to punch him in the face.
In 2004, Princess Diana's favourite hideaway, the K Club Hotel, went out of business. A blow on an island barely touched by tourism.
Nothing is happening here. This place...
All these cottages are abandoned?
Yes, they've been abandoned for years now.
In 2014, Mr. De Niro and his Nobu Hotel Group expressed interest in taking over the K Club. New name, Paradise Found. At first, the islanders were happy, and under their unique land system, a vote was held to decide if Mr. De Niro could take on the lease. The result is contested to this day, but at the time was declared in De Niro's favour. Faraway Leicester, home to one of the biggest Barbudan communities in the diaspora.
We always grow up to know Barbudan is Barbuda. Barbuda handled from slavery.
Many of those in this room were born on Barbuda and came here in the 1960s. They still have a share in the island's communal land arrangement, as do their children. From here they keep a watchful eye on events, and they're worried about De Niro.
He talks about his anti-Trump, that he said he wanted to punch Trump and he was anti-Democrat. He's turned into a hotelier. He's no different to Trump.
No.
He's doing all what Trump done. This is just like Trump.
Exactly.
Robert De Niro don't know what he's taking on, because we stick together, because we unite and we be strong when they come on the land rights. You don't know what you're taking on, Robert De Niro.
The reason that people like Daphne are worried is that beyond the hotel land, Mr. De Niro also paid to lease an extra 300 acres of this precious land. In total, that's equivalent to 50 Wembley stadiums. Many islanders were incensed and brought a legal challenge. They blamed the influence of Prime Minister Gaston Browne.
Because we must repeatedly rebuild after disasters with high-cost commercial money.
Many islanders say they were not properly consulted and that their communal land, a legacy from slavery, could not be traded between the Prime Minister and Mr. De Niro.
In this global village, Robert De Niro needs no introduction. He's an acting legend with over 90 films under his belt.
In an interview conducted for the government's tourism website, Mr. De Niro explained why investing in Antigua and Barbuda made good business sense.
We've been treated very well here. I've been treated very well here by the present government. It's a new government, and they're young, and so they're enthusiastic and more, I think, willing to
more development oriented.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Now the Prime Minister has introduced new legislation that Barbudans say will rip up their historic land agreement, their precious reparations for slavery. They say Mr. Browne wants to open the way for developers and make Barbuda more like its sister island Antigua, where virtually every beach has a hotel and cruise ships bring in thousands of tourists. and dollars every week.
He's like a Killibrand dynasty, you know.
It's mid-afternoon in the Antiguan capital, St. John's. Outside Parliament, a small group of Barbudans are protesting at the government's new law that they say will take away their land rights.
I come to fight for my land, and I'm asking all the Barbudans to come out and support us where we fight for what is for ours. So come out, our land matters.
Robert de Niro, the Paradise Found. We rejected that, right? We have a case in court, a big land grab, right? To please who? The foreign investors, not to please the local people.
The government rejects such claims.
The government is making an offer, and I say it again, it's an offer that can be accepted or refused by the Barbudans. They will not be forced. If there are 50 Barbudans who feel they want to exercise the right to own their land, they have the power so to do. If the others want to remain in this communal, common ownership situation, they too are free to keep that.
The main town on Barbuda, or what's left of it.
In September 2017, Mother Nature intervened. Hurricane Irma devastates Barbuda. Over 90% of the structures destroyed or damaged, and all the islanders evacuated. Over 4 months after the hurricane, when we visited, the mood is disconsolate. Just 350 of 1,800 islanders had returned. They're suspicious about the slow pace of repair. No houses rebuilt, power and running water not restored.
Almost everything was lost. There were no move made, and no moves are still being made to put the essential services in place. I think it's just the first step in the plan to separate and divide the people of Barbuda.
Their fury has been directed at Prime Minister Gaston Browne.
So tell me about Prime Minister Browne. What kind of person is he?
Well, he's a big-time trickster. Try to fool all who he can fool. Make promises, big promises, and so forth.
Islanders are not impressed by seeing picture after picture of Mr. Browne clogging up his air miles, ostensibly to raise money to rebuild Barbuda. Here he is in November with Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn and some of his shadow cabinet. Here with Chinese officials, at the United Nations, and with the Cuban leader Raul Castro. Barbudans told me they saw this as a publicity stunt that does little to benefit them as they wait for the roofs to be put back on their homes. With the recovery operations strangely slow, islanders told us they see the Prime Minister like a bad landlord who declines to renovate a damaged property in the hope residents won't return.
I'm here to speak about Barbuda.
For his part, Mr. De Niro spoke up at the United Nations after the hurricane, making an appeal for help for Barbuda.
We have a humanitarian crisis, an entire island destroyed. We must act together to help the most vulnerable, the ones affected by disasters and vulnerable to the effects of climate change. We must stand with the Barbudans, Barbuda and the Barbudans.
But so broken is the trust with the Prime Minister, some islanders are now asking questions about why his government sold the K-Club lease to Mr. De Niro in the first place. In November 2014, the government of Antigua and Barbuda appointed Mr. De Niro as a special economic envoy, a role that came with a diplomatic passport for the actor. They said he would help to attract investment and American celebrities to the Twin Islands. What raised eyebrows was that when Mr. De Niro completed negotiations and signed off his agreement on Barbuda's K-Club, he did so as Antigua and Barbuda's economic envoy. Why did he sign it this way? I asked the government.
When he signed the MOA...
He's an envoy for us because we appoint him. Our Prime Minister appoint him to that post.
So that's a political appointment?
It's an appointment by the Prime Minister.
Is that political? It's a political appointment?
It's an appointment by the Prime Minister.
Which is, I guess... No, but When he signed the MOA, he signed it as the economic envoy for Antigua and Barbuda.
Why would he do that?
Well, it says in the document. It says in the document.
The MOA is not something for the ambassador. It's something for Paradise Found.
Certainly, everything seems to align in the memorandum of agreement between the government and Mr. De Niro's company, Paradise Found. The terms show that to secure the lease on 555 acres of land that will last for 198 years, Mr. De Niro will pay $5.2 million plus an additional $1 million. According to the contract, this $1 million represents the complete cost of converting the existing leasehold to freehold title upon future availability. British-based lawyers acting for Barbudans in challenging the new Land Act say this clause raises questions about their original intentions.
It's an amazing piece of foresight that the drafters of that contract 3 years ago would have included a clause that should there be the ability to have freehold land, that lease would be converted into freehold. Wow, amazing.
And is that what the new Act says?
Well, the new Act actually has a clause in it that existing leases, there are two, and the De Niro Paradise Found lease is one of them, can be converted into freehold.
The implications of all this, Barbudans say, are huge.
That beach up there at K Club, now called Princess Diana Beach, was voted one of the top 10 beaches in the world. Is at least $3 million to $10 million an acre.
So they're sitting on a possible fortune.
You're sitting on a fortune if it becomes freehold.
Robert De Niro declined to comment on the allegations. Prime Minister Gaston Browne refused to address the substance of the allegations, saying only that our report is salacious fake news and fabrications. And so, once again, as it was in the time of slavery, the little island of Barbuda is the scene of a battle.
You know, if Princess Diana was alive, this would not be happening. This would not, if she was alive, Princess Diana would never let this happen.
I'm very optimistic about this whole project. I hope it really works. I know there's going to be a lot of work. It's not it's easy to talk about it, but you have to get it done.
It's just disappointing to see that all this natural beauty is going to waste.
From all I know, everything that has been done with Mr. De Niro and his group is above board.
We'll go to the court and challenge any act passed in Parliament that is not in sync with the people of Barbuda.
Paradise may well exist on this island, but as everyone knows, inside the Garden of Eden were the seeds of temptation and the fall of man.